Shalom everyone, and today we study Parashat Nitsavim-VaYelekh, two parashot that are joined together before Rosh Hashanah. Parashat Nitzavim, which can be found on Deuteronomy 29, verse 9, is always being read the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. Sometimes with Parashat VaYelekh, sometimes without it. It's all about because we have very few parashot left till Simchat Torah, and depends when Rosh Hashanah falls, when Sukkot, Yom Kippur. According to that, the parashot are being moved, shifting this way and another, so we will finish exactly on Simchat Torah. This parasha, as I said, is always being read the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. And of course, there's a reason for it. And the reason is it's very simple. We read the story, and just to have the background, the book of Deuteronomy, it is all of it, the last words of Moses before he's moving on, which means the whole book of Deuteronomy is basically the heritage Moses is giving the nation, the world, before he's passing on. So when we come to read it, it says, Atem nitzavim hayom, kulchem, lifnei Adonai Elohechem. So it says, you are standing today, all of you, in front of the Lord your God, your heads, Rashechem, Shivtechem, the heads of the tribes, Ziknechem, the heads of the families, Shotrechem, the policemen, Kol Ish Israel, every man in Israel. And then it continues, verse 10, Tapchem, Neshechem, the children and the women, Vegercha, and the non-Jews who joined you, Asher Bekerev Machanecha, Mi Chotev Etzecha Choev Mecha. So, what is it over here? So, let us read the commentary of Rabbi Chaim Ben Atta, or Chaim HaKadosh. And he says as follows. I'll read first Rashi. Rashi, he lived a few centuries earlier, but he's quoting earlier commentaries, and he's saying, מלמד שכינסה משה לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא ביום מותו להכניסם בברית. It is teaching us that Moses, on his day of departure, got all the Israelites, the whole nation together, in order to reenact the covenant that was created on Mount Sinai. Okay, so why did it say about the foreigners? Because it says, Rashi is saying, verse 10, there were also non-Jews who joined the camp. They came to Moses and wanted to join the Jewish people, so they were also part of that congregation. And so now everybody, now we can see the inclusivity in it. It says many times, with especially you, all of you, and the word kulchem, all of you, and we cannot not ask the question, what is the connection to Rosh Hashanah? And the answer is very simple. The same way that Moses got all the people together to reenact the covenant of Mount Sinai, the same thing happens to us every year on Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the year, because we have a chance to reenact the covenant all over again. One of the examples is that in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah, especially in the Musaf, the additional prayer, that is the prayer that we blow the shofar. In that prayer, the Mount Sinai revelation and the blowing of the shofar on Mount Sinai is mentioned, which means on Mount Sinai, as the covenant is being created the first time with the whole nation of Israel, they were there was the sound of the shofar. So there is a very strong connection between the covenant between the people and God, and Rosh Hashanah. So, in a way, we have that ability to reenact the covenant on Rosh Hashanah because it is such a powerful day for all of us to remind ourselves who are we, what we are for, and why are we living here? Because the biggest problem of human existence is when we forget what is it all about. What is the game about? What is the story about? Why, why do people suffer? Where is misery coming from? All of that, if we don't see the context and we don't see the context of the covenant with it, then we are in a trouble. And that's what Rosh Hashanah is about. It's about fixing that trouble. And let us continue. So here we have, so we have to remember, so the traditional commentary on these verses is that, yes, we are talking about the last day of the life of Moses, yes, and we are talking about reenacting the covenant, yes, and we're also talking about Rosh Hashanah at the same time, the same verses. And that's why we read Parashat Nitsavim always before Rosh Hashanah. Now, so Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar, in his commentary, is asking, why do we need to detail what is detailed over here? Rashechem, your leaders, Tabchem, the children, whatever, all those, isn't kulchem, all of you, enough? The other question we have to ask is, what's the reason of that covenant? What is this covenant about? Halo besamuch, before that we said in a previous verse, the last verse of Parashat Kitavo, verse 8, which is the last verse of Parashat Kitavo, it says, Ushmartem et divrei habrit hazot, and you should observe the words of this covenant. Okay? Now, why do we have to mention it all over again? We already mentioned it. V'nireh, and it looks like, ki kavanat Moshe, bivrit because the intention of Moses in mentioning that covenant, hu lachnisam ba'arevut, is to get them to be responsible for each other. זה על זה, כדי שישתדל כל אחד בעד חברו, so everybody works and tries and makes the effort for the success of of the other person. והעד הנאמן, so and in order to understand it better, he says, באנו להבין מאמר אתם ניצבים. Why does it say Parashat Nitzavim? Why does it say Atem Nitzavim? You are, the simple translation, standing. But standing in Hebrew is omdim. So why using the word Nitzavim? And he mentions basically the word Nitzavim is about nominating, or in Hebrew, minui, nominating, or appointing. ואמרו כולכם, פירוש כולם. And it says, all of you have the responsibility for each other. כל אחד, לפי משהו, each one according to his own, whatever he is. And that's why we understand what our sages said in the Talmud. Tractate Shabbat, page 54b. כל מי שיש בידו למחות בכל העולם נתפס. Whoever has the ability to proclaim, announce, even demonstrate when people are doing something wrong and you can somehow protest about it and mention to them, remind them that they're doing something wrong. If you are standing silently, and we know that very history is teaching us, if you're standing, the people standing on the side without protesting, they are also part of the crime, the mistake, whatever wrong that is being done. And therefore, we have to take a collective responsibility. And now, so how is that connected to Rosh Hashanah? And the answer is that we have the same status every year again on Rosh Hashanah. When we read the words of Rosh Hashanah, and we mentioned it before, the words of Rosh Hashanah prayers are uh, about humanity as a whole standing in front of reenacting the covenant. What kind of covenant? So the Zohar is saying something very important for us to understand. Uh, the Zohar speaks about souls of human beings when they incarnate or reincarnate into a human body. They come down in a special way. The Zohar mentions that in the Zohar about Parashat Vayelekh, uh, verse 7. And he's saying that whenever a human being, a human soul is coming down to this world, it is being kind of sworn to the covenant, which means what is the covenant? And we mention it many, many times. And especially now, it is crucially important. When we ask the question, why can't humanity find peace? Why can't humanity find harmony? Why is it that even today, when we as human beings, although we have more than 8 billion people walking on Earth, we have the technology and the ability to grow much more food than we can eat every day or every year. We have enough technology, access to materials, and whatever needed to build enough housing and good housing with all the services properly, like water supply, electricity. Today, humanity is better off than ever in history. We are the richest, the peak of human existence. Even the poor ones live on a higher life standard than rich people 1,000 years ago, and even 100 years ago. Life expectancy all over the world is much higher by average, and also like the chances for every human being to reach the knowledge in order to live a life that is respectable and respectful is higher than ever in the history of humanity, and it's almost 100% for most human beings alive. So why do we have so many problems? The problem is not because we cannot supply everybody needs. It's because of what we call Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Greed, ego, misunderstanding, all kinds, all the different branches of what we call the evil inclination, they are clearly, more than ever before, responsible for the lack of humanity to provide for all its members. So if we want to understand what should be the solution for human misery, hunger, famine, lack of uh, clean water, all of that, education, it's all about one thing. When people are not really connected properly to the calling of every human soul. On Rosh Hashanah, once a year, when all human souls go back to the beginning, because on Rosh Hashanah, there's something, this is an event of a completely universal power, because every human being, his or her soul, is kind of reconnecting to the moment of the birth of the universe. And again, the moment of the birth of the universe contains also the covenant. Because, how could that be? There is a reason for the birth of the universe. The universe, the way we know it, exists for one purpose and one purpose only. When we go to the beginning of the Torah, the first word of Genesis, Bereshit, which is somehow translated into the words in the beginning. It's not what it says. In the beginning, in Hebrew, is Bahatchala, not Bereshit. Bereshit has the shoresh, the main letters of the word Bereshit is Resh Aleph Shin. Resh Aleph Shin is head, at the head of the things. And we know that the word head in a biblical or Hebrew context, and also in many other languages, when you say the head of the country, the head of the company, the head of the household, we are talking about the person that is responsible, has the control, and his decisions will make it for everybody else. So it's all in the head, which means when you say Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, okay? And you mentioned the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, in the head, the intention. And you have another thing, which is amazing. If you take the letters of the word Bereshit and you rearrange them, one of the outcomes will be Aleph Betishrei, which is the date in the Hebrew calendar of Rosh Hashanah, the first day in the month of Tishrei, Aleph Betishrei. And that's in the word Bereshit. So what we learn about Rosh Hashanah, there is something, it's a cosmic event in which the whole universe is in some dimension returning to the initial point of the creation. And we know there's a Hebrew expression, Sof Ma'aseh B'machshava Chila. The completion of the action is already rooted in the original thought, which means there's an original thought, and that is what's behind all the actions. You cannot see half job to foolish people because they cannot understand, but you can explain the intention to people that are smart enough, and then they realize that all the actions that you are making, all of them are connected to the same idea. There was a thought in the beginning, and what you're doing right now is in order to bring that thought into fruition. So that is always applied to the creation. Since no one, except from little babies, does things without an intention, a thought, a plan, an idea. So we, of course, have to understand that the Creator himself, when he created the universe, there was an intention. What was the intention? And the intention was to create a universe in which he can, the Creator, share the pleasure that emanates from him. He can share it with his creation, us, his children. So the whole, if this is the initial thought, and that appears in many, many places, always you can find it in different ages, in different sages, that repeats itself again and again. There's one intentional thought behind the creation. Here is the creator, the source of all that is good. However, that good cannot be considered good unless somebody experiences that good. And therefore, the whole creation was there for human souls to be created because we are the vessels for that bliss, pleasure, and good that emanates from the endless eternal source. However, since we were created in his image, why? Because when the creator is sharing, he cannot share partially. His creation always will be infinite, like he is infinite. And therefore, he shared himself with his creation. And therefore, it was embedded in each one of us, the image of God, as it says in Genesis chapter 1. And that embedded image, the image of the Creator, is the main force behind everything we do, everything that happens to us. How come? Since being in the image of God, we have a tremendous need to create. And that means to create independence, to create our happiness, to create our joy. And therefore, we are incapable of receiving God's pleasure passively. And because of that, although from the Creator's point of view, the creation has been completed in no time, above time, as it says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 5. And there was a night, there was a day, one day, which means there was a night, the creation, human souls desire to receive the vessel for pleasure and happiness, and there was a day, and which is God's light. One day, it was all one in a complete unity. How could you have infinite oneness only in a point that has no dimensions of time and space? Something that science is realizing for the last century, that the source of the whole creation is one point that is above time and space, in which everything was one. The only way is one point singularity, or as it's called in the Kabbalistic writings, nekuda emtzait, the middle point. But when everything is in complete harmony and unity, we have no space to achieve the image of the Creator because we need to create it on our own. How can I be independent if I'm not under any control of something else? How could I be creative when everything is perfectly made? How could I be a person that shares if there's no one who needs me? And therefore, the world that we know has been created, and the fracture of the universe into a partial, fractioned, a paradoxical, painful existence, this is starting from the second day. And you see, on the second day, God just separates and separates. So we're here in a reality that is perplexing, confusing, paradoxical. You see great, amazing, loving people suffering. You see bullies, robbers, liars, cheaters reach higher levels of power in every aspect. And you ask yourself, where is God and where is justice? And this is the universe that was created as a gift for us so we can overcome the paradoxes, the limitation of the senses, the limitation of the physical body, which is mundane, which is very, you know, relatively to eternity. How long do we live? Few decades. We're getting today closer to 100, but still, this is a speck in the relatively to time and to the universe. So, in order to achieve eternity, in order to achieve the image of the Creator, we need to overcome the paradoxes, the confusion, the evil inclination of the limitation of the body, the stupidity of the human mind. And by overcoming that and reenacting the covenant, we can achieve divinity. We can achieve that what we were created for. And therefore, everything that happens to us on a daily, hourly, minute basis, it's all geared towards that purpose and that purpose only. Now, once a year, we have a chance, the whole of humanity, to reenact the covenant, reenact the rules of proportions of what are we doing here, what is really a goal, and what is only just a mean. So the Torah says there's nothing wrong from enjoying life. Nothing wrong for eating good meals, drinking wine, enjoying a beautiful house, beautiful cars, whatever, anything. The question is, if you need that for your well-being and you're totally dependent on that, you are in a great problem. You are in danger. Why? Because you forgot the purpose. They, which means those uh, goals that we as humans today, we are being breeded to achieve, to buy. You know, the moment you have a beautiful house, you need to buy a more expensive house and to get again another mortgage. Okay? You have clothes, but a new season is coming. All the clothes you have, they're not up to date. You have to get a new line of clothing. It's never ending. This is very materialistic. But we are conditioned that you cannot be happy and feel successful unless you are part of that cult of materialism that humanity is becoming in the last few decades. And that cult is the new idol worshiping. Therefore, it is almost impossible to find real happy human beings in that cult of materialism, of this materialistic uh, religion, of worshiping brands, worshiping items, worshiping lifestyle that the media is dictating. This is what you should do in order to be a member of the what is supposed to be in that cult that is called uh, modern humanity. And it's all false. It's all fake. The more you work for it, the more you have, the less happy you are. You can have moments of excitement on a daily basis, but you're not a happy person. And this is unfortunately, the big plague of our generation, discontent. And therefore, Rosh Hashanah for all of us is the most one, maybe must one of the most uh, precious days of the year. It's a day in which we can stand in front of our calling, in front of our covenant. And it's about that humanity. We need to remember that you cannot have an amazing, successful, fulfilling life just for yourself while people around you are still in that horrible captivity of the cult of the materialistic civilization. So we know it's going to be really hard. How can one person be responsible for everybody around him if they don't really want to listen? And the story is very simple. I can say just from personal experience. When a person is really working hard through personal commitment, through ongoing study, through working hard with friends that are really committed and better, more committed than I am. So we can support each other. We can be buddies in that journey, that we are all part of the journey. Sooner or later, people around you, even though they're members, the devout members of the cult, they start to see that you have something they don't. They start to see that you have that spiritual fulfillment, that well-being they are looking for, and they can't find it through all what modern society has to offer. Because modern society is a cult that basically denies the existence of God, denies the existence of the soul. It is the epitome of heretics of all ages. It's a heresy in the highest degree. There's no argument. Simply, there's no God and there's no soul because it's all nonsense. So there's not even an argument about it. Oh, we know God is an illusion. It doesn't exist. So how do you know? You go to the media, you go to the academy, and you see that how with such a confident uh, tone, those prophets of the false cult of materialism, they don't even argue. They don't even listen. Why? Why should I listen to something that has no base in science? And I said it many times. Science is very young. There are many things that science just recently discovered. Does that mean that it didn't exist and science discovered it? And if there are so many things that science discovers every day, every year, how do you have such a certainty? There's no soul and there's no God. And the problem is much harder. It's without the soul, without the essence of God, we are basically disconnected from our calling. And therefore, the word Nitsavim means an appointment. You're not standing, you're being appointed for your job in the journey of humanity. Okay? We are not looking at it as a curse. We are looking at it as basically the challenge. If you don't lose God, you cannot earn the revelation of God. If you don't lose your soul, you cannot earn the revelation of the existence of the soul. What's happening today to humanity, we went that far into denying the spiritual realm. How do we know? It's never been like this in history that people were so much after everything that has a metaphysical touch, fantasy, movies, books, occult, charms. You look at it, it's like never before. It's so why people has that need, and that thirst is not being quenched not in school, not in reading, not in learning, not in academy. So you need to get it from somewhere. So all of these fantasy uh, uh, movies, however, they still show you a huge fat lie. What is a fat lie? You watch all of these movies of superpowers, Superman, Spider-Man, and so on. They got their superpowers either because they were born with it or a spider, a super spider, beat them or something like this, which means they did nothing for it. It happened to them just by mistake. Well, what we know, this is a lie. In order to achieve superpowers, in order to reveal the super soul we all possess, in order for that super soul to overcome the physical body and to reenact its connection to the endless infinite power that is really the only force that is running this universe, you need to work hard for that. You have to work hard on your mental abilities. You have to work hard on your consciousness. You have to work on your daily actions through meditation, prayers, study. This will never be acquired for free. So that's another lie. Why? So the lie of our culture is, oh, if there are superpowers, uh, there's no way to achieve them unless an accident will get you to get there, which means whatever you do, you're not going to get it, which is the exact lie. Yes, there are a whole list of actions that the Torah describe very simply. You have to follow certain rules in order to understand that reaching superpowers of soul that is stronger than the body and therefore mind over matter or soul over matter is a possible thing. This is an acquired skill. And therefore, you have to dedicate your life to it. No, you will dedicate your life to make money, to spend money and stuff like this. And if you get superpowers, that will be by accident, which is again a lie, as we said. No, it's a daily hardship. So we have in this parasha something that repeats itself again and again and again. And in the last chapters, in the last parashot, when a person decides that he doesn't want to be part of the journey and he turns his back to the rules and the journey, you cannot quit. There is something that is called surrounding light. You cannot quit. And whatever you're going to do to deny that, reality is going to face it, to make you face it. And you'll have, and what's happening today? The whole chaos that is happening all around the world, that the society is crumbling the way we know it. It's all because of one reason. We are not doing our job. We are not basically connected to our calling. And therefore, the punishment that we get, and now the Torah is calling it curses. And some commentators are saying the word curse in Hebrew is klala, and it's coming from the word kala. Kala means when you disrespect and disregard the rules, what you consider them as nonsense, what's called kaludat. It's like, it's nonsense. Then the result is the curse. What's the curse? When you don't understand, as we said before, you don't understand that electricity is a serious stuff, and you mistreat electricity, the power of electricity can become your demise, can kill you. It can burn your home. There's so much, if you're just lightheaded about that. And that's about electricity. What about the eternal power of God that permeates everything in the universe. You disrespect it, you're just lightheaded about it. Oh, that's nonsense. And so on. That is the same thing as a curse. The curse is you disrespect the power that is the only power that can give you a meaning, can give you a true, real, lasting fulfillment. So the whole Parashat Nitzavim is about taking responsibility for our calling. And that's called, again, another concept that repeats itself in this parasha again and again, the teshuvah concept, the return, that we return to that covenant that we had with the Creator at the moment of our birth on Mount Sinai, and every year on Rosh Hashanah, there's a cosmic opening that allow us to experience that covenant all over again through prayers, through meditation, through the shofar. And by doing that, we can reconnect. And that's what teshuvah means, reconnecting. And when we reconnect, this is when we can find a calling. This is where can we find our happiness. That when we can find the balance between body and soul, and that's when we can really find our responsibility for our relatives, for our community, for our country, for the whole of humanity. We must reenact that covenant and that responsibility. And this is what Rosh Hashanah is about. And that's hinted for us in Parashat Nitsavim. So wishing all of us an amazing experience that it won't happen by coincidence or by accident. Because as it says, if you will go astray to the ends of the heavens, God will bring you over from there. It doesn't matter how far away spiritually you've been lost. It doesn't matter how far away physically you've been lost. God can bring you from there, because if He's infinite, He's even there in the farthest places, spiritually, physically. And that is the consciousness that Rosh Hashanah is not a day of judgment from, oh, we are going to be punished. And we have to pray to God, please forgive me, and I'm never going to do it again. No. Rosh Hashanah is a huge promise, a huge opportunity to find that godly, infinite calling, that covenant inside ourselves. And when we can find it, we can return to that frequency. The more we can go back into it, that's the kind of a year that we're going to experience. Is it going to be a year that we're going to be alive, which means the life force of godliness within us is going to be dominant in everything we do and we think, most of the time at least. And then we can go and look at our life every night before we go to sleep. What an amazing day. Yeah, there were so many challenges, but I lived. I overcame. I fought. I fell. I got up. I didn't forget what is the purpose. And by the end of the month, by the end of the year, when I celebrate my birthday, when it's Rosh Hashanah, I look at the previous year and I say, oh, it was not easy, but I managed to remember who I am. I managed to stay that person that is the arena of the battlefield between good and evil. And I realized that that's what it is. And I realized that without that battlefield, I will never be able to create my own divinity, my own independence, my own image of the Creator, that I am responsible for that because I overcame all the illusions and all the disruptions and the misunderstanding and the brainwashing of society. And I still remember my covenant. Good luck to all of us. And that's a message for all of humanity because we are all in it together. All the best.